All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And by the way, I can see the group chat, so again, feel free to ask any questions while you're in there. All right. Did I go back? Oh, no, okay, this is right. All right, so good morning, everyone. So again, for those who don't know me, my name is Joey Madrano. I am one of the heroes here at Upswing, superhero technically. I'm a former admissions counselor for one of my old universities. I'm also a former teacher, and then I'm actually a first-generation learner. So I know one of the big things about Upswing is we focus on the non-traditional students. Well, I happen to be one of those non-traditional students, so that's why I very much advocate for the for Upswing. And so a little fun fact about myself and something I actually want to know about you guys is, for those who don't know me, I'm actually an avid corgi lover with a corgi with me. So I have right here on the right hand side my dog Jelly Bean. She saw a treat and is excited to be here and sit beside me this entire time and looking all cute. Does anybody here have pets at all? I'll go ahead and give everybody a second. Thank you. She is awesome. She's a handful, and I will tell you this, I need to invest in a Roomba. 5 cats and a border collie. Woo. Border collies are so pretty, though. Oh, they're so cute. I love little dogs. Jellybean's a pretty... Oh, Kyra has a dog beaver? Oh, that is so awesome. See, this is the thing with me. I love animals, and I feel like everybody else does. It's like a universal thing. Oh, that is awesome, Mike. We do have a whole Slack channel to dogs. Yeah, see, as soon as I start giving her attention and love, she's all about it. We all do. We all do. And for those who ever have meetings with me, if you need to see Jelly Bean, you let me know. She will get here and she will get all the attention. And sometimes even when I'm in meetings, she'll jump up and start, messing with me. And I feel like I have to explain it. Well, great. So thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Love all the dogs. I love the cats too. I'm not biased to either or. So today what we're really going to be going over is we're just going to be doing an admin dashboard overview. The next thing is a reporting overview and ask me anything. So for the admin dashboard, I'm just going to show a couple of things, show the capability of what you can do in there. The next thing is we're going to be going over how to create a custom report or what kind of reports that you can request. The last thing is an ask me anything. So I know everybody's always like, hey, Joey, can I pick your brain about this, or can I ask you this? You can today. Well, you can ask me anytime, but today is a good way so everybody can see it. So what is the admin dashboard? It is at a high level view, it is a one-stop shop for user management and reporting. So if you need to see what your students are doing, like which students are leaving sessions, you're able to go there and do that. If you have faculty that are starting to log in and they want to see certain things, this is where you can kind of change their roles. You can also manage your tutors on here. You can schedule them, all that kind of stuff. And I know it's really easy for me to say this all out loud. And so I'm somebody that is very visual. I like to show people what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. So this is our demo environment. So we're going to go ahead and wait for it to load up. So when you first log in, it's going to take you to this user administration page. And so this is the page where you would be managing all the users, whether it be managing your administrators, managing your tutors, your students, so on and so forth. So say we have a student right here, Julia. If we wanted to edit anything, or really edit anything in general on here, all you have to do is click on the pencil beside either their name or their role. So to change the role, you'll click on the pencil right here. But if you want to see things that you could edit on here, you can see, oh, sometimes I can edit their name or their email. This is only for specific integration schools. But you can also see what groups that they're associated with, if they have their phone number on here. So if their students are like, I'm not getting the messages from Anna or something like that, if you put their phone number on here, we can actually help them get those messages. If you click on the tutoring tab, you'll be able to see the duration of your contract and how many hours you have left. You're also able to see these handy dandy graphs that you can print out and use on any kind of presentations. Here's another one. And then here at the bottom, you'll actually see our data export tool, where you will see all the tutoring sessions that are being done for our synchronous platform, whether it be with your tutors or with ours. And I'll be going over how we do this later. If you have advising, you can see all the notes that have been left on students. You can also export that data. And for your advisor sessions, this is much like the syncs. You can export all this data on there too. For assignment review, this is for like paper submission. You can go on here and do the exact same thing you do with the other ones. Pull that data. If you're looking to manage your tutors, you can go on Tutor Schedule Management, and you'll be able to see their schedules, see who's tutoring when. You can schedule sessions with them, all that kind of jazz. Are there any questions so far? We're going to be going over a lot, so if there are any questions along the way, definitely feel free to ask, and I can show it, or I can say that we're going to be going over it in a little bit. But just so far, are there really? And that actually is my next slide, I believe. Actually, yeah. What you already know is it's one of the most common ways. The most common ways is the data dashboard. You use it to track groups of students or tutors. You can also change the roles of users, check Anna messages, and more. So can everybody put in the chat, what is the most common way that you use the admin dashboard? And this is, again, I would really like for you guys to share, just because there might be a specific thing that you use it for that maybe not another school uses it for, and we can all collaborate on it, and maybe I can show you guys a couple of things. So I'll give you guys maybe like a minute or so. Even if it's just data reporting, that's okay to definitely share. But yeah, what is the most common thing that you use the admin dashboard for? How much time do we have? Ooh, group management. Kyra, I love it. Hi, Dr. McSwain.
Okay. Hi, Joey. I was in the other one just for a little bit, because I'm trying to do both at the same time. How are you, my friend?
It's nice to hear from you.
Always, always.
Oh, man. We got a lot of good stuff. I love it. Monitor tutor schedules to update contact information and change user roles. That is great. This is great stuff. Oh, Dr. McSwain, you did miss. Everybody was talking about their dogs just a little bit earlier. So.
Oh, Jelly Bean.
Yes, she's always good. Right now, she just decided to lay down after not getting the attention. Oh. So we got tutor spot checks, how the tutors are doing. Awesome. So I'm loving all the tutor management that's on here. That is some good stuff. So, and I'm glad, Kyra, that you brought up, you do a lot of group management. And so that is something that today I kind of wanted to go over, how you could grow as admins. And so editing and updating tutor schedule. So for me, I've noticed that now that we are getting into this post-COVID time, there are so many different administrators that are wanting to get on board with Upswing. They're from different departments like Trio, enrollment management, so on and so forth. And so I think something that is very underutilized is group management. And so I'm going to go ahead and get in this admin dashboard and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So as administrators, you can actually set up your own groups. So if we click on here, user administration, we go to select admin functions view and click on group management. Now here, you'll see that you're actually able to create groups. So if you click on this little plus button and say, oh, you have somebody from the TRIO program that is like, I want to see if my TRIO students are actually using Upswing. So here you can actually create the group. So we'll just say TRIO test. TRIO test. And just like that, it shows up. Now you're able to add them one by one, or say you have a list of students that you need added on here. You can send them over to your hero and we'll be able to upload it for you. But in general, it's relatively easy on here. And so say we wanted to add something to the Joey likes to show the admin stuff page. All we have to do is search for this user. So say we want to add Zach Baker and Sarah Cares. And just like that, they're added. And so this is the first step to creating a group and really starting to organize several things. So let's say in that example, all right, now that we have this group, we want to see what everybody in that group has done. If we go to this tutoring page, you'll see in all sessions, we can click on this tab right here that says select a group. We're going to go ahead to Joey likes to show admin stuff. And I know my grammar is poor right there, but I like to make really bad jokes and make people laugh. So that's kind of my thing. So here you'll notice that now that I've put that group on, it has filtered out everybody else and only includes what we were looking for. So we see Zach Baker right here and all the sessions that they have completed. And so again, there are plenty of different ways that you can use this, whether it be with enrollment management, or where they're like, we're wanting to track these specific students. Say you have students that are on like financial probation. You can actually track their usage on here if you want to set it up like that. And it's super easy. All we need on our end is the emails of these students. So can anybody, so Kyra, I know you said that you do a lot of group management. Are there any kind of groups that you've thought of before that you use to track? Or if anybody has any groups on here that they use, do you want to share it with us?
Hi, Joy. This is Arletha. So we
Hi.
do, as you know, we do different cohorts. We've got our athletes. We've got our any of our students who are in course or any social activities. We also have a group where we do the tutors. So I can't thank you enough, Joe. You know I'm your biggest cheerleader. So I just we are so grateful for Upswing.
Well, thank you, Dr. McSwain.
It helps us meet all of our compliance, whether it's SACS, USDLA, Florida Sarah. So just we're grateful for Upswing. So thank you, Joey.
Oh, thank you, Dr. McSwain. Oh, thank you, everybody. You guys are the best. I didn't even have to get you guys in here to say that. Nobody is in here. Nobody's in here. I didn't tell anybody joining here to support me. That is awesome. But yeah, that is so Dr. McSwain gave a great example, and Kyra's giving the example as well. So sports teams, honor classes, and organizations in general. I know from working as an admissions counselor or working just in universities in general, athletes are required at D1 schools to take like 10 hours worth of tutoring. I don't know if it's per week, or I think it's per week. But this is like one way that they could easily track it on here. And so Dr. McSwain is correct. We have actually worked with their athletics department to do that. And so actually, and Kim's using another great example too. So they use it to track what their tutors are doing. So they assign it to different instructional leaders and subject-specific tutors. So when they're tutoring middle school and high school, they'll use it. They'll assign specific tutors to those students, and they can track it through there. So that's another great way of using it. I'm glad that you brought that up, Kim. Awesome. I'm loving this. I'm loving the interaction too. So that's a great question. So so we have a question is, are we able to add specific tutors to the groups, or is it user students only? And so how do you put tutors in a group? Great question. So if you go to user administration, you'll click on this select admin functions view and click on group management. And so the answer to your question is you can add specific tutors. So say we wanted to add one to the Joey is the best one. Again, I love bad jokes. I'm sorry. We can add on here, if there's a specific tutor we were wanting to add. So I know on here, use Michael Jervis. He's like our coach. All we have to do is add him on here, and then you can just track those specific coaches. Ah, okay. So we have another question. Can you track from the course level which ones have students with the highest usage? Problem courses, course students, fails in general. So actually, Sheila, we are able to do that. We can pull on here, if we click on this tutoring tab, you'll be able to see which subjects are on here, and you can filter this out either through Excel, or if you actually connect with your hero, we have a way of pulling this ourselves that I'll be able to show you in a little bit. But yeah, that's a great question. Awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead, do this over one more time. Oh, Kyra, so the early alert tab is for advising. And so actually in the 10 o'clock, or no, the next breakout session with the partner ones, they'll actually be going over that. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check that one out. All right, so how do we do custom reports? So I'm gonna show everybody in here how to do a custom report. I'm really bad at showing people this stuff, but I worked on this one and I'm hoping that'll come out well. So really the first step is, and I'm going to be showing you how to do this here in a second. I'm just have these steps on because I know some people are step learners. The first main step is you're going to want to filter out the table first with what you are looking for with the corresponding time frame. So in general, with our second step, it's going to start from the beginning of time to the end of time. So wherever your Upswing contract started to the end of it, it's going to cover all those dates. And so, or it's going to cover, if you've been with us for 3 years, it's going to cover all those dates. So you're going to make sure to filter that out first and second. The third is you're going to go to the custom export and select the additional filters that you need. So again, I think the best way for me to teach this, to show you how to do it. So here we are on this tutoring page, right? So say I'm wanting to track the group Joey likes to show admin stuff. And we only want to see which ones were completed. We would click on the status button, say completed. Say we only wanted to track what was done within the last 3 months. So we wanted to do May. Oh wait, give me 1 second. So May to, let's see, it's July 14th. We apply that, we'll see only those sessions. Now we'll want to name it here at the bottom, so we'll go to test. Click on this little arrow that's going down and click on custom export. Here you'll see we have a bunch of different filters, and so some of these you might not necessarily need. So that's why I was saying definitely look at these and see which ones you would like. So for me, I think the most important ones, we'll do coach name. If it was a group session, what the date was, the student name, the student school ID, the subject name, the transaction minutes, which the transaction minutes actually show how much time was actually used. So say a student can use this for about like 30 minutes or so, but they scheduled it for 30 minutes and they only used 25 minutes. This is the way that you can see that. And if it was an Upswing coach or not. So here down at the bottom, and I'll actually give you an example of what that looks like. And then all you have to do is click on export at the bottom. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think I lost my chat box. So I'll go ahead and get back to this. Okay. But yeah, so that is how you create a custom report. So again, one more time, you're going to want to filter out this table first before you do anything. So if you wanted to do a specific time frame or a status on here, you would have to filter this out first. Dr. McSwain, I saw you rose your hand. Is there a question?
No, I was giving you a clap for job well
Oh,
done during the report.
thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. McSwain. Again, nobody is here to advocate for me. Everybody here is just awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Mike. I'll definitely share that with them. I'm gonna screenshot that for them. Our tech team, they don't get enough props like they should. And I'm glad that you use it, Mike. That's great. Are there any other questions too about how to make custom reports? Are there specific things that you're looking for? Yes, every single day, man. Are there any questions on maybe like a different example that I would need to show, or is everybody here kind of comfortable with this? Again, this is going to be recorded and sent out, so you can review this for future practice. But are there any questions?
So Joey, is there a way to generate an automatic PowerPoint from the dashboard data? Since a lot of our upper administrators like to do presentations with charts
So,
cabinet.
So actually, the closest thing we can get to like a PowerPoint is using these graphs. But Dr.
Okay.
McSwain, as you've seen with me, if you would ask your hero for if there's like a PowerPoint that you're wanting to do, we can definitely help you work together on that. And so that's one thing I want to make sure that everybody in here knows. Use your hero. We're not here just to smile and tell you, nice things. Like, we want to be honest with you and we want to help you out to the best of our ability. So always use your hero. Even if you're like, Joey, I have this idea that I want to use, can we do it? We're gonna try to put it into our system and see what we can do. Or in general, if you're like, hey Joey, I'm having to present to this group of people, can you help me out? I'm only using myself right now, but you can ask our other hero, Jana, or Christine, for any sort of assistance, and we'd be more than happy to help you out.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So yeah, Kim showed a great one too. So you don't have to just look for statuses just completed. You can look at all abandoned, unanswered, declined, that kind of stuff. You can also track by location, the actual duration. So this would be, again, like if they scheduled something for 1 hour but only used 11 minutes. The subject, and you can track by student or tutor or group. So yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll go back to this presentation. And so again, if there's a customer report that you're thinking of and you're like, oh, hey, Joey, I would like to see what this looks like. So I kind of attached right here at the bottom left, we actually do have a way of showing you a tutor heat map. So what this does is it'll actually show you when your students are completing sessions during the day. So this one is actually a sample from one of our schools where it showed that students were primarily scheduling only at night. And so on Saturday night at 9 p.m., they would be doing a session. Kind of crazy, right? But this kind of stuff, if there's an idea that you have, ask us. Maybe there's a way that we can pull that data for you or show you an easy way to do it. Are there any questions? Okay, doesn't look like anything. So I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Again, if there's anything else, feel free to ask. And so now that we are moving into these this post-COVID world, how can your school's faculty and staff monitor online usage? So actually somebody that is in here, and I'm not gonna call them out, but this is something that I learned from them, where they're actually able to show when their tutors are logging in and logging out. And so, oh wait, give me 1 second. Love this report for. You can, so Cam, you can actually pull the, the heat map. That is something that your hero can pull, but we can actually make you a dashboard like that. So definitely feel free to reach out to your hero for that. But yeah, so something that one of our schools was actually able to teach me was they're able to track when their students, or not their students, their tutors are logging in. And so they actually do this to track their payroll, which is just crazy. That like this is part of our system. And like I said, I went and I actually visited them, and they, yes, we called it a heat map. But yeah, I went and I visited them, and they showed me this. And so I thought it'd be really cool to show everybody on here. Chat open. Oh, oops. Well, that's the next slide. So here, it's a place called assignment review. So if you click on this tab that says assignment review, if you scroll all the way to the bottom where it says tutor logins, you can actually track the times that tutors were actually logged in from what time to what time. So again, say you're wanting to track, like, okay, now that we're moving into like a hybrid environment, like I want to make sure that my tutors are online and they're saying that they're immediately available. So one way you can see that they're immediately available is going to tutor schedule management. But here, if you go to this tutor logins page, you'll be able to see when they logged in, what time, and for how long. And so again, this is where that group management tool really comes in handy. If you clicked on select a group, you can see right here who is logged in when. So say I want to say Joy likes to show admin stuff. Because I didn't sign a group, or because I didn't sign a coach to this, they're not on here. But when I go to Joey is the best, we'll see Michael Jervis when he logged in because he's assigned to this group. So if you have a group of tutors, you're like, hey, I need to make sure that you guys are online. I need to be printing out these reports. Just, holding that accountability. This is the way that you can do that, by going to assignment review and clicking on tutor logins. But yeah, that is something, again, one of our partner schools showed us, and they're actually doing a presentation later too during the async part. So yeah, they're awesome. Okay, so this last part is an Ask Me Anything. So I know that we kind of went through that relatively quickly, but is there any questions, or does anybody have anything that they would like to share, or just in general? I'm here to answer, whether it be about the product or just something that, any ideas that you have. Now, everybody don't all jump at once. The assignment review feature is something that your hero can turn on. Yes. And so even though it's usually used for our async, we could turn it on for you, but you wouldn't have access to like submit papers, but that is one way that you can track, yes. And again, don't hesitate to ask us stuff. We want to be there to help you out. Awesome. So again, are there any other questions or anything you guys would like for us to show, or maybe something has come out recently and you're like, hey, Joey, I would like to see how this is done, or just anything in general? It wouldn't have to be about just the admin dashboard. You can ask about the coaching or anything like that.
Joey, this is Elizabeth. Could I go ahead and just ask a question? It's easier than keying it.
Yes, of course.
In the opening session for feedback, they showed basically standardized questions that were marked as required, because right now we're just using open-ended feedback. Is that something that we would also ask our hero about turning on for us?
Yeah, so we can actually, one thing that Alex did cover in the main session was we can customize our feedback. So yeah, we can change that to, like you said, you have it as open-ended right now. We can change it to multiple choice. We can change it to true or false, a couple of different things. So yeah, this is something that you could ask your hero, and then we would sit down with you and go through what kind of feedback you would like to see.
Great, thanks so much.
Of course. Oh, okay. So Mike asks, once async features are enabled, does admin need to assign tutors to work groups in order for them to intercept writing submissions? Yes, the admin can, but also the hero can. So if there are like 50 tutors that you have, obviously that's for you to key in every single one. That would be crazy. So ask your hero whenever they're like group, if it's like large groups, like 15 to 20, ask us and we can get that in there. Like I said, all we need is the email addresses. But again, you have to make sure that you do have the async feature. Yes. Awesome. Are there any other questions? I think I forgot how much time I'm here for, so I'm just gonna be sitting here smiling until they tell me to get off. Or I'll just be sitting here waiting for people to ask questions because I think I also have the next one that's gonna be in here too. Oh, awesome! Thank you, Christine. Are there any other questions at all, or any feedback too, in general? If there's something that you're like, hey, Joey, I really like this, or hey, Joey, I think this could use improvement, this is also the time to ask, because there might be somebody else that agrees with you, and then the more traction that we see from our partners from it, the easier it is for me to advocate for it and to get more fire. So, any feedback too that you would like to share? Well, if there isn't anything, I'm still going to be in here for the next 7 minutes. So I'll just be sitting here. If there's anything, feel free to ask or have conversations. But yeah, thank you so much for partnering with us to engage our students. And this is all of our little Upswing team. Thank you. What is Jelly Bean like to eat? Oh, man. Jelly Bean.
I couldn't resist Joey.
Jelly Bean, it's funny. She can be, I used to really spoil her. I used to actually make her food like an oatmeal. But yeah, now she just has this kibble because she's actually allergic to gluten-free food,
Oh,
according to her vet.
wow.
So yeah, now she has to use normal kibble. So it works out for me.
Thank you, John. I've got an 11:30 presentation, but I'll be
Hey, that is
back in
fine.
after that.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Dr.
see
McSwain.
you.
See you. Awesome. So we have a question about outside the AMA dashboard. Yeah, go for it, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's me. It's the vocal one.
Oh, hey, I like it.
One of the things, and we are dealing with 9th through 12th graders, so we're a little different. We're not college level.
Right.
So we have just started using, well, not just, but in the last, Kim's in here, help me, I think maybe 6 months, we started using the group feature.
Okay.
And what we have found as just a little glitch, and it's probably on our end, not knowing exactly how to use it, when a student is searching for a tutor and they get to the tutor schedule, there's the one-on-one schedule, but there's also that group schedule. Well, it's defaulting to the one-on-one. So if a tutor has nothing in that 101 slot and they have put everything in the group, it looks like they have no sessions. How do we overcome that? Do we need to tell our tutors to tutor in both group and one-on-one areas, or is there a way to work around that?
It's a good question. And so I think there are two different ways that you can do this. One is you can definitely indicate in the tutor's bio to look at both of them, the one-on-one and the group, because I'm assuming that you do a lot of group tutoring, so that's probably why they're not running into it, right? The next thing is the tutors can also schedule time to be in both one-on-one and group, and so that's where they would show up in both. So right now we actually are working on something with Alex brought up earlier, our new calendar feature, where it's going to kind of show up as one. So that's looking at getting changed right now. But those are like the kind of the workarounds for that. I say that with the air quotes. But those look like the workarounds for that.
Perfect. We'll tell our tutors they need to schedule in both places because we're dealing with high school students and they probably aren't really reading the bios.
Right. No, and I've actually worked with a couple of different programs that work with high school students. And so, if there are any questions, definitely feel free to ask your hero. And then we always connect. So it's me and a couple of other people. And so we talk, I think, 2 to 3 times a week. And actually, we talk every day, but we have 2 to 3 like sync meetings a week. So we're always talking. If there's anything that, we feel like we're not getting, we'll be able to help each other out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that workaround.
Of course. Are there any other questions? Or any feedback? Awesome. Well, I'm just gonna be sitting here for the next 7 minutes. So feel free to ask any other questions or again, just share stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and bug my dog while she is here. She is. Jana is awesome. She's been an awesome addition to the team. I will say this: there's a lot of crazy that is in like my head. I'm a very like vocal person, but she helps bring so much organization to me. So yeah, like there are times that I just feel like I don't have everything on my plate, but she has it all organized. So she's been doing awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm glad that you can join in. And if there are any other questions, outside the admin dashboard or just, things in general, again, feel free to ask. As heroes, we are well versed in just about everything. So,
Joey, I have a question.
hi,
How
Jasmine.
are you?
I'm
Hi.
good.
So I was wondering, is there anything or any settings that I could change so that we experience less lagging in our videos? Or is that an IT thing or a broadband thing?
Yeah. So, fun fact: I actually used to be a network engineer. So,
Okay, great.
so I actually, I actually can help you out a little bit with that. So, it could be that it might be a bandwidth issue. And so the thing is, if the video is coming through, that like I would say that's not a firewall issue. So it might just be bandwidth. So just how good is your internet? I guess is what I'm saying. And so I would say the best way is to be like plugged in directly to a computer. Now I know not every student's going to do that, or not every tutor's going to be doing that. So I would say that is the best thing that you can do for that. In general, for any like kind of video issues, I would also say make sure that all other video conference apps are off. So this means Zoom, Blue Jeans, Google Duo, what is it? FaceTime. I don't use Apple. So FaceTime. Any of those things, as long as those are off, you actually will probably have a relatively decent experience when it comes to the video. And then also what browser you're using. So we recommend Google Chrome. If you're using like, Microsoft Explorer, chances are it's going to be a little bit lower, but it'll still work. But we suggest Google Chrome and then closing all those other apps that could affect it. Awesome. All right, looks like Marissa is joining. So I'll go ahead and I'll stop sharing my screen. But if there are any other questions, let me know, and then I'll also still be on here for the next one. Thank you, Kim. And everybody is super nice, Marissa, so it's been a very easy one.
Of course, soon as I ask a question, Joey, my computer dies.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, so before we get started on this next one, I'll go ahead and answer you real quick, Jasmine. So in general, the only thing I would say the best suggestion is to turn off all other like video conference apps that could be open. So this could be like Facebook Messenger, Google Duo, FaceTime, anything else that could be like using video or audio. I would say turn that off. And I would also recommend Google Chrome as a browser. Those suggestions usually it stops the video from lagging a little bit more. As the best thing is to be wired in on a connection. So like actually being plugged into the router or the wall is the best thing. I know not every student can do that. but that is usually the best way.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Of course. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Marissa. We will still be watching the chat, so if there are any other questions, we'll be in here. Oh, thank you, Christine. Finished just on time. I'm so happy about that. I was so afraid that I was just gonna finish in like 20 minutes and just be sitting here being awkward, but it didn't happen like that, so I'm glad.
They had great questions, Joey. You did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody did have great questions. I'm glad.
You really did.
Marissa, are you muted or wait, are you talking yet or is it?
Okay, yes, thank you. I didn't realize I was muted. Good catch. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'll go ahead and get this going, but we wanted to focus on Anna and a lot of the things that we learned over the course of this last semester. And so Joey has been my partner in crime as we've been navigating everything during this last semester. So Joey, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll speak.
Hey everybody, again. So Joey Medrano, one of the heroes on the team, former Mitchell counselor, former teacher, another first-gen learner. A different fun fact about me is I'm also a practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. So I've competed before, and in that same competition, I ruptured my tendon and Achilles. So hardcore, but yeah, another fun fact about me.
Nice. All right, and then for those of you, if I haven't had a chance to meet you, I'm the customer experience manager. Previously was the engagement manager, if you've heard that term before. I have a background in higher education. I was most recently working at Arizona State University as a student engagement lead for international students. And then I also worked in the business program. And then prior to that, I was an online academic advisor at University of Phoenix. I'm also a non-traditional student learner, so I have taken classes online as well as working and all that fun stuff. So it really helps me to be able to understand where students are coming from, because I also experienced that myself as a student. And so it's really what I'm most passionate about, in bringing those experiences to really help students and to help engage them during their academic journey. Fun fact about me, I've moved around a lot. Basically for the last 10 years, I have moved once every year, minus this place that I'm actually living at right now. And actually my lease is up here in 2 months, so I'm actually gonna be moving again. So I don't enjoy moving, but somehow I still keep moving every single year. It's kind of annoying actually, but interesting fact.
So yeah, our agenda for today is we're going to be going over what is Anna. We're going to also go over setup and implementation, message strategy, and then the engagement and outcomes. So if there are any other questions, again, feel free to ask it in the chat. We have it consistently monitored, and we can also see it. But yeah, go ahead to the next slide, Marissa. So what is Anna? Anna is our virtual assistant that is semi-automated, and it's a SMS-based virtual assistant with a two-way response. So we like to say it's the Siri for your school. So if your student has any questions in regards to registration, financial aid, or if they're just wanting to know general information about your school, they can actually text Anna and get those answers or be referred to that. We like to think of it as an individual-based engagement tool. So we can like mass message on this. We can do a couple different things on here that we're going to be going over in this, but in general, this is focused on the individual. And so you'll see right here, actually in the middle, we have an actual message from the students. We message them, hey, congratulations on graduating. We're proud of you. And we have been sending encouraging texts thanks to Marissa's planning. And what they had said was, thank you, Anna. Your encouraging messages helped me get through this semester. And so actually all the messages that we're going to be showing on here are actually messages from students. So it's not stuff that we just, made. So there'll be actual student reactions. But in general, Anna is essentially a Siri for your school that can be used as an engagement tool, but also just a really informative piece. Can we go to the next slide? So how does the setup work in Anna? Really all we need is an Excel file with these fields in here. So it would be first name, last name, email, student ID, and then their telephone. So that's because it's a text message-based assistant, we're going to need the telephone. Like Alex shared in the first meeting, we are ADA compliant, so you don't have to worry about any privacy. Nobody can really pull these numbers. And then we can also organize this into certain groups. So we have some schools that use this really extensively to where they'll send certain messages out to financial aid students, to TRIO students, or to summer students. And so again, with the group feature that I showed in the last session, it can also be used to organize messages in here. But it's a relatively easy setup process. Go ahead, next one. So what is involved in implementation? We need your data. So just like I showed in that last slide, that is the first thing that we need. The next thing is the onboarding call. So we'll talk about how Anna works, what our priorities are, what is the processes. When I say our priorities, what are your priorities? Are you wanting to do enrollment management? Or you wanted your enrollment management involved and they want to be sending out certain messages? This is something that we would want to make sure to help you out with. Or are you looking at engaging a certain particular sect of students? We want to know what your goal is using Anna. The next thing is messaging prep. So we'll start, once we have that first onboarding call, we will go over what we have learned from that, and then we'll start curating messages off that, and then we'll get your feedback on that. Then we'll send off to product to get those messages sent out. Pretty easy, pretty simple stuff. Are there any questions so far? We're going to be going over a lot, but if there are any questions, again, feel free to share it.
Yeah, we definitely want to make this interactive, so feel free to jump in at any point so that you don't forget any of your questions. So I think the most important thing to note is this isn't really a hard lift on your end. We really take a lot of the work on our end and try to make it easiest for you as possible, including with that are actually curating the messages. So that's why it's important for us to understand what's important for you, and we take that information and we distill that into messages that we curate that are going to reflect what those priorities are and incorporate that into the messaging strategy. So some of the types of messages that we like to send out, we like to send basically a variety of messages so that students aren't seeing the same type of message every time they receive one. And also important to note, we recommend typically that we would only send 1 to 2 messages a week, but they would come in the form of either a specific reminder that was timely to the academic calendar that students might need to be aware of. We can send out surveys where we're specifically gathering information for your school to be able to understand how students might need to, distill information to you. We are recommending resources like advising and your business office, financial aid, those types of things. So students know where to go in order to get something done or to ask specific department questions. We are handling any special messaging requests that come in. So perfect example, when COVID hit, we had gotten several requests on sending out kind of almost like an emergency message where students need to have very specific information. We do special campaigns, so we don't always like this to be focused on just being informative. What we have found is that students really engage with the more fun messages, as you could imagine. And so we like to highlight, special days. We like to highlight holidays, that sort of thing. And that's where we really start getting students to engage with the messages. And then most importantly, something that we've really been focusing on most recently is sending encouraging messages to students. So this is really an opportunity where we can let students know that there's somebody here that's rooting for them, that's supporting them, and we incorporate that heavily within our messaging strategy. Okay. Ooh. I'm sorry. What is happening? This is not responding to my mouse. Okay. We wanted to do a quick poll to kind of get your ideas on how things perform with On It. Now, I'm going to need somebody's help because I can't see the messages, but if you guys can put your what your thoughts are in the chat. We're going to do a quick poll. My first question for you is, what kind of messages do you think your students would like to see the most? So kind of going back to the messaging type that I just went over, do you think that they like to receive like informative messages, the resource recommendations, surveys? What do you think that students might respond to or kind of engage with most?
So we have a couple so far in here, or actually a bunch. So we're getting reminders, encouragement, important dates, encouragement, resources, reminders for appointments, encouragement and reminders too, encouragement again. So a lot of good stuff.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who said encouragement, those are by far the messages that students respond to most. It's so, what's the word I want to use? It's encouraging to us, honestly, when we see the messages and the responses that we get from students that even just say, I needed this today, or you don't know how important this was to hear this. So students really, really respond to encouraging messages. So for all those that got that, good job. What holiday did students respond to most this last year? Second question.
So what holiday, when we sent out messages on this specific holiday, which ones did you guys think got the most answers or responses back? So, there's a couple different holidays that are going around. Somebody said Labor Day. Oh, wow, that's an interesting one.
It is.
Thank you, Allison. Memorial Day was another one. Okay. Any others? You can just take a shot in the dark.
Give it a couple more seconds.
Okay, we got leap year.
I love the variety.
Yeah, I know. These are did not expect those.
Just like our students. All right, I'll give you the answer. Valentine's Day was where we got the most responses this last year. I don't know if students were full in the love or whatever, but it was pretty amazing to see how many students responded to. We did like a quirky little what was it, like a witty little comment to them about Valentine's Day, and basically the messages blew up. So we always thought that was pretty interesting. Final question, what do you think is the most random subject a student has talked to us about? This could be between pancakes and waffles, dinosaurs, let me see, what was the other one?
We've had
Ellie, help me out.
CIA. Yeah, we've had CIA, possibly, you know. Pokemon Go. Somebody thought we talked, ooh, Pokemon Go. That's a good one, Allison. Man, you guys actually have really great responses to these.
Yeah.
Are there any other topics that you think a student has messaged us about? Like I said, it could be about anything off the top of your head.
Think quirky.
Music, video games, favorite color. I liking these.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and show the next slide, which is the answer. So dinosaurs, we got this message and we kind of didn't know what to do with it. So that's what happens sometimes, is we get these quirky messages from students, and yeah, we do our best to, you know, kind of play around with them, but this one kind of had us a little perplexed and made us all laugh. So actually, a lot of the suggestions that you made, most likely we probably have gotten that as well. All right, so kind of going back to what we were talking about. So here, this image, we really just kind of wanted to show what the interaction looks like with Anna. Essentially, you know, Anna sends out a text message to the students, and ideally we would get a response back from the students and just kind of start that conversation. Really, we're just trying to open up the lines of communication, be it centered around, you know, something informational or something that's a little bit more fun or encouraging, that sort of thing. But really the main focus here is that we're just starting to get the student to engage with Anna and start to build that relationship. That's really kind of the most important thing that we see with Anna, is the fact that this text messaging service can really start to establish the rapport with the student. And that's where we start to uncover a lot of things, be it good or bad. And we look at both of those as opportunities to kind of process that with the student. So some of the positive things that we get to see are just these encouraging responses that they give back to us. A lot of the times these come from, you know, the encouraging messages that we've mentioned already. But you just really get to see how, one, like almost thankful that they are for getting these types of messages, but also just really encouraging and really insightful to how they're feeling. I'm going to give you guys a moment to kind of look over this. All right, Joey.
Yeah, so who responds to the students? We have 3 different ways that we do this. The first thing, which is showed on the bottom left side of the screen, is our decision trees. So what we'll do is we'll send out something like the message on the right that says, we'll give students a couple different options, like what are you doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if they respond with like a 1 or they respond with a 2, we'll have something set up towards like, you're going to be working this summer. Well, like, good luck, and let me know if there's anything you could do. How about, you know, something along those lines? And so it makes it kind of automated, where if they are responding with a response, they'll get a canned response back. Now, say they put something a little bit different in there. So say they don't respond with a 1, or they're like, I'm mistexting Anna right here at the bottom right-hand side. We actually do have a Upswing support team that does respond to these messages, and it's based off the way that we have set it up with your school. So if there is something in particular that you're looking for them to do, so for example, they say, I really need to connect with like an admin or an advisor. This is where our support team will help them make that connection to that. And then the last thing that we can do is, or actually something that you can do as administrators, is log in and answer them yourself. So you can actually go to the admin tab on the administrative dashboard and click on the process review, and you can actually respond to some of these messages. So we have one of our administrators, she is incredible on Anna. She is always watching. She'll even say, "Hey, Joey, this was a great message." And I'm like, you saw that? And so she will share with us like what she's been reading, but she'll sometimes respond to the students too and make sure that they're getting the assistance that they need. So it's not just us that can respond to these. It's also something that you can do.
So one thing I really want to make note of is that we see this as a collaborative effort. So this isn't just, you know, us putting these messages together and then us facilitating this, but we really want to get the input from you guys so that we can then build that out into the messaging strategy. Because we have the experience of, you know, building out these messages, we do like to take that lift for the time being so that we can kind of help to streamline this and to make this easier for you. But it is really important to know that we want this to be, you know, a two-way process, and that's why we really try to, at the very beginning of the semester, gather as much information that we can for all the things that you need to use this service for, and then we facilitate putting that into a plan. Following that, once all the messages are put together, we send that back over to your team to make sure that everything looks as it should. You're comfortable with all of the messages that would go out to students, and then make any edits or adjustments if needed. So just want to really reiterate that we see this as a collaborative approach, and that we're building this out together. So some of the things that we have done most recently from this past year to this year was we have really refreshed some of the messages that we send out. Previously, we were a little bit more focused on sending out reminders based upon the academic calendar. And you can kind of see the difference in the language that we were using in regards to it being very informational, gets the message across. And now something that we are starting to do is really try to lean into using emojis. We're leaning into finding different ways to say maybe the same type of message so that it makes it more interesting. Students might be more inclined to respond because it's maybe a little bit more friendlier, that sort of thing. And most importantly, again, always making this encouraging. So instead of it just being a blanketed statement of, you know, hey, financial aid deadline is here today, don't forget, kind of changing that message into being more action oriented. So getting them to think, okay, financial aid deadline is here, yes, but what steps do you need to take to get started? Or is there something that I can do to help you get started? So I think that's kind of the biggest shift that we want to make sure that everyone is aware of, that we're kind of moving towards in regards to how we're building out that messaging.
I do want to say on that note too, and when she says that we do create these action items, something that we also we did recently that got a lot of response is we sent out a message that was like, have you done your financial aid yet? If you have, send us back a high five. And we got plenty of high fives back. And so you actually start getting a feel for where the student is at, because we can actually send that back to you. But yeah, like it's just stuff like that where we actually encourage the responses. We encourage them to tell us where they're at their process, so we can help them get there. So for the students that are like, I'm completely lost still, when they text Anna this, we can get them connected to those resources.
And one other thing that I would also add to that, the way that we're looking at engagement for Anna really is that we're getting responses. So that's kind of, we're trying to build out the message in a way that would warrant that response, and not just that we're sending out a text message. To us, that's not necessarily meaning that the student is engaged from just sending out that reminder. It's did they actually respond and possibly get that conversation going about whatever that specific message was. So, so how does Anna affect student engagement? Well, I think the biggest thing is that it allows us to have these conversations with students that, for me, most importantly, I think it helps them to work past obstacles. So let's say, for example, they were having an issue with getting in contact with an instructor. They feel completely frustrated. They feel like they can't move forward with whatever it is that they're trying to achieve in that class. Let's say it was a homework assignment, and they just feel stuck. Now, in a situation where they might not have a service like this, what could happen? That might mean that they just get really frustrated. They're not able to work past that. It impacts them completing that particular assignment because they didn't have the information that they needed. What we do here is we kind of talk this through with the student. So one, we make sure, okay, have you contacted your instructor? When was the last time that you reached out to them? You know, we have this conversation where we're helping them process what is happening and whatever this obstacle is, and then we're helping them to find solutions. Now, if it comes down to it in particular situations where we are kind of hitting a wall together, that's then when we reach out to the admin that we're working with so that we can get that outside support. And then when we connect the student with the admin so that we can have them basically kind of step in and help in with the situation. But I think that that's kind of one of the biggest ways that we're helping students with this, is that we're getting them past their obstacles so that they can just keep going down their academic journey. And in this particular message, this one was a very inspiring situation with this particular student, because what happened for her, this was during, you know, all of COVID-19. She lost her job. She got in a car accident. I mean, it was everything you could possibly think of that would prevent her from being able to continue to be successful. She had 3 kids. She needed to start helping her kids start taking their classes, and she just felt completely lost. And so what we did was right away, we started referring her to resources. We connected her to her admin. And from that, what was able to happen was they were able to help her get connected with all of her faculty. She was able to pass 3 out of her 4 classes. She got the 2 really high grades in both of them. And she circled back with us and let us know that, you know, because we were able to intervene and help her get to the connections that were needed to basically help her work through all of this, she was able to pass and get through that semester and just get closer to graduating because she was able to do that. So I think that Anna has a way of opening students up to let them know, or to let us know when they're experiencing these issues, and it allows us to help them process through any of those obstacles that they're going through. So one of the other major things that we did this last semester was we've really been working on building out our data dashboard for Anna. So we do understand how important it is to be able to see, you know, what these messages are doing and what type of outcome and output we get from these text messages. So these are some examples of some of the data points that we now have access to that we're able to share with you. We're still finalizing this, but ultimately we do have this information that really helps inform us of what's going right, where there are some areas of opportunity, where do we need to make some adjustments, maybe educating students about how Anna works, and that sort of thing. So it really just helps to inform us of how we can continue to grow together with this partnership and how we use Anna to support more students. The other big thing that we had as a major development from this last semester was just the amount of growth that we had from Anna during you know, everything going on with COVID-19. What this particular graph shows you is if you look at Q2 of 2019 to Q2 of 2020, we basically tripled our numbers in the amount of responses that we got from students. And I think that that really just goes to show that, one, text messaging really is a great form of communication for students to connect with. But then also it just goes to show, you know, during this time when things were so uncertain and, you know, we kind of were all just experiencing this unprecedented time where, you know, everything changed, nothing was normal. Students really relied on Anna to help them process it. When we saw that through all of the communications that were coming through, you know, students were opening up about how they were feeling about this period. You know, they were letting us know they didn't have the resources, they didn't have a computer, they didn't have Wi-Fi. I mean, we just saw such a variety of need and communication, and really just kind of exposure of all of these feelings and thoughts that students were experiencing. And that translated to the amount of growth that we had during this specific period of time. So for us, it was really telling to be able to understand what students were going through. But then I think that it also just really shows how important this can be as a communication tool, because it's really the types of communication that students resonate with and they respond to. And that has continued to show through the growth in these numbers. This is probably our newest, one of our newest products. And so we haven't had Anna for that long compared to some of our other services, but the growth does continue to show the importance of Anna and being able to use that as a tool with your students. All right, so that basically concludes our presentation. Does anybody have any questions for us? Are there any questions in the chat?
Not yet.
Okay.
Is there any feedback as well too as to what we have shown or stuff that you're like interested in that we can go a little bit more in detail? So we had Kim says it looks like a wonderful tool to connect with students. So yeah, thank you, Kim. That's the goal. The goal is the students.
Absolutely. All right, well, that concludes it. If anything comes up that you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to your hero. I work very closely with them, and that's basically how we continue to build upon what it is that we're doing with Anna. But absolutely let us know if you think of something later on, and we'd be happy to help you and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Kim, for you know, staying in here and giving us a feedback and the positivity. We really appreciate it. All right. Nice to see you as always, Carol. And Carol from Rock Valley says it's nice to see you, or nice to meet you, Marissa.
No, thank you too.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and check out this partner one too. So if there isn't anything else.
Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you
Thank
later.
you.
Welcome, everyone. Just hit 11:15, so we'll go ahead and kick things off. I cannot see the chat, so if there's any chat messages that come in, Christine, if you could just kind of let me know and read them out, that'd be great.
Okay.
But yeah, what I wanted to do with this, just with this time was to walk you all through, first of all, just how we've historically seen advising work through Upswing, both from the student and the advisor perspective. If you had a chance to sit in on Luke's presentation just now, he probably did a much better job of describing it from like a firsthand experience than I could, but I'll try to go over what we're seeing across all schools. And then I wanted to also just talk a little bit about, how are things changing in this post-COVID world? What are some of the ways in which advising is becoming, intertwined with other parts of the college, student service offering, and where do we see things going from this point forward? So I wanted to first just start by showing you guys a little bit about myself. So I'm Alex Pritchett. I am the COO at Upswing. So a lot of my role involves overseeing product development as well as our engineering teams here. So I'm very focused on, working with partners as well to go out there, learn about, the processes that take place at, at learning centers, at advising centers for administration, and then taking that information and figuring out how can we at Upswing, make your lives a little bit easier? How can we make the lives of your students a little bit easier? So these are just some pictures of me at some various campuses. This was from a trip to Houston out in the past fall. I went and was fortunate enough to meet with our partners over at Lone Star College, Houston Community College, University of Houston, Victoria. And then there are just some others, BMCC, we did a visit last year, learned a lot from them about how they do online tutoring. Texas Southmost College, learned a lot about how they're, supporting Hispanic students, and was fortunate enough to also present at a conference last year at NCLCA. And then I thought it was also just interesting to kind of show you what my new COVID desk space looks like. I feel like this picture pretty well encapsulates who I am. It's like a little bit of everything, and there's some tech in there. There's the games with the dartboard. I've started learning how to play the guitar. So, real high level intro of me and who I am. Really, I try to be really approachable. So if you ever do have any questions or, want to talk about anything that maybe you feel uncomfortable bringing up in, during this session, feel free to email me. My email's right here, alex@upswing.io. I love, just talking about, any pain points or any ideas that y'all might have in terms of how we can make Upswing even better. So what I wanted to cover was, and I kind of went over this already, but just the traditional approach that we've seen with online advising, and then some of the evolving use cases of online advising because of COVID-19 and because of kind of the widespread quarantine. So I wanted to start with just talking through, how have we seen students traditionally using the online advising system at Upswing? And there's a couple of things. So one of the key things that we've seen students utilizing on Upswing is this ability to schedule time with an advisor. And this is something that's, the usage of this has increased really dramatically just in the past couple months, since in-person advising has no longer been an option. We've seen it done in a couple of different ways. So one of the pretty neat things about how advising has worked on Upswing is that we have the ability for institutions to automatically assign students to specific advisors. So, in the case that Luke mentioned at ACPHS, they may have it set up where, their students all have like a class advisor. So if, your class of, 2020, you're going to have a specific advisor that works with you during your entire time at the college. In that case, they would be able to associate that all those students with that class advisor. And it makes it so that when I'm going in as a student, their information is really, predominantly displayed here at the top. It's easy for me to click into that profile, view my advisor schedule. and then find a time to meet with them. So that's kind of the first way in which students have traditionally used the scheduling feature on Upswing. The second piece is, so some of the colleges that we work with don't necessarily have this a system set up where they're assigning individual students to individual advisors. They'll use more of like a round robin or like a first come first serve type approach. And our system can support that as well. And the way that that works is that as a student logging in to receive advising help, students at those schools would see all of the school advisors right here beneath where the assigned advisors would be. And so if my school didn't have any assigned advisors, I wouldn't even see this assigned advisor block at all. It would just show up as your school's advisors. And then I can do things like filter out by different categories. So if I'm looking for someone to help me with, degree planning, that could be a different advisor than, someone to maybe help with, interview prep. So as a student, I can go and filter my advisors and then select one that I think may work best and go out and actually schedule an online session with that advisor. When the time comes around for the actual advising session to happen, one of the like really, I think, key pieces of our system is that if the student has used tutoring at all through Upswing, then the advising experience for them is going to be very familiar, very comfortable. A lot of our technology utilizes kind of the same underlying way in which we allow students to interact with tutors and advisors. So a student coming in here who's taken, who's done a tutoring session would be very comfortable and used to all the tools available in the virtual learning experience. So this includes, connecting through audio and video, which has been a really, I think, important part of keeping the advising experience very, very personalized and, kind of very student-centric in terms of meeting with a person. And then we've also seen that there's been a couple of other features that I think are used very predominantly in advising sessions. And that's the ability to upload files to the whiteboard and the ability to screen share other applications. So the reason why we've seen the screen sharing functionality really matter for our advising sessions is that advisors are often coming in and they may have, like Luke was mentioning, a grade book that's in another system, or they may have something around degree planning that's somewhere else. And instead of having to point the student to a lot of different directions to go over their degree plan or to go over their grades, the advisor can simply screen share and bring that directly into the Upswing session. So it makes it where, from the student's perspective, I have this one place where I'm interacting directly with my advisor, and I'm not having to go into 4 or 5 different locations to try to see the same thing that the advisor is seeing. So from the advisor side, I wanted to also go over some of the things or some of the ways in which they've traditionally used the Upswing online advising platform. So the first thing I wanted to show was really going over, from the advisor perspective, some of the tools that are most often used by them. So of course we have the actual sessions themselves. So this is something where advisors are able to, set up their own schedule, set up their own availability, and then actually interact directly with students through Upswing when it comes time for that session to take place. This has been really important because it's been a way for advisors to help them manage their schedules even better, and to also show to students, hey, here's when you can expect support. Here are all of the people at your school who are available to help you in the support capacity for advising. And it centralizes everything so that if a student is also using, tutoring, for example, they can see that in their schedule on Upswing as well. From the advisor perspective, though, there's a couple of other items that end up being just really important specifically to advising on Upswing. The first thing is, and what I'm showing you here, is that we have the ability to integrate in an early alert system with the advising sessions. So this is what a couple of our schools use very extensively to track and make sure that students who may be falling behind or may be at risk, they're able to kind of bring that to light, so that if an advisor is coming in and they're meeting with a student prior to the session, they can see everything in terms of any previous alerts that have been set on the student. So could be academic. So, it could be that the student failed their last exam, or it could be, something personal, like maybe the student's, car broke down or they're having transportation issues. So as an advisor, you're able to view all this information if the student is assigned to you or if you've met with them in the past. And then it allows you to really have that context going into the advising session with the student. Also, as an advisor, you're able to flag an alert on a student as well. And this is really important because this is a way for you as an advisor to notify any, advising administration or other advisors who may be interacting with the student that there's a particular issue that was uncovered during the conversation with the student. So, maybe the student mentioned that they're considering dropping out, or, maybe they're considering, maybe they're having some like emotional wellness issues. Then those are the types of alerts that you can start setting so that other people are aware of it, and it can be more easily triaged moving forward. And then as part of the advising system as well, there's also a note-taking aspect where you as an advisor or as an administrator can leave notes on students who you've met with or you've spoken with. Or, maybe you've noticed like a data trend from them, like they haven't shown up to the past couple sessions. You can also leave a note as well. And these notes really help to function as, I would say, like almost less severe versions of the early alert, but still keeping all that context on the student, where you could see any, maybe like a recap of your session with the student. Or you could even see things like, hey, here's where the next steps will be with this student in terms of, doing any triage, or maybe like recommending to other services like, tutoring or counseling or career services. So everything is kind of kept in one place around the student. One other aspect I wanted to mention here is, and this is something interesting that Luke mentioned, I know that other schools do this as well, is that, the idea of early alerts don't always have to be for like at-risk indicators. They can also be for things that are maybe more positive, like a student received a scholarship, or they got, introduced into an honors society at the school. And when that kind of stuff happens, schools are also using this system to help celebrate those wins with students as well. So, they may, I think Luke at ACPHS was calling them, fist bumps, or, we've seen other schools call them like kudos. But it's a way to just show the student, hey, we're recognizing that you're trying really hard, and that you're succeeding, even if it's in smaller ways. And that can sometimes just be, like a boost to the student's confidence, and just keep them motivated throughout the school year. So in addition to using the Upswing platform for supporting advising, one of the key ways in which we've really seen schools start to expand their advising impact has been through mobile messaging of students. And so we have a tool at Upswing called Anna, and Anna is our virtual assistant. It's like a virtual, you can think of it as like a text message version of Siri, is how I've heard schools describe it. And it's specifically focused on college students. So what's really neat about the Anna system is that it's completely customizable for every single college that we work with to focus on engaging students at the right time, where, it may be a point in the semester, for example, where you know, students may be struggling academically, or maybe, you know, they're getting used to a new lifestyle in terms of, you know, first year student just coming onto campus for the first time, or they could be, you know, dealing with things like applying for financial aid or registering for classes. So things that are more, you know, operational. And the way in which we've seen ANA be used is to really supplement the advising work that advisors are doing in terms of meeting with students, connecting with them, providing them direct support. ANA has been used as a way to nudge students towards different things. Like, for example, you know, nudging a student towards, you know, starting to prep for their exams a week or two ahead of time, or nudging a student towards receiving different types of, you know, coaching that may be available to them on campus. ANA can also be used for gathering information on students that they may be hesitant to discuss otherwise. So we've seen a lot of success in the past with schools sending out these text message nudges to students around, you know, hey, it's 2 weeks into the semester. How are you feeling? You know, how are your spirits? How are you adapting to the new school year? And then listing out different options for the student to respond within. And it's been a really interesting way to start getting just deeper insight into, you know, some of the non-quantitative aspects of how the student's doing. And it can be very actionable, where if students respond in a way that is very negative, or in a way that exudes a certain type of emotion, then we can raise those up to administrators to say, hey, did you know that, you know, these 5 students, you know, all responded to the last ANA campaign and said that they're having a really tough time right now emotionally, just adapting to the college lifestyle. It may be worth, you know, doing some personalized outreach to them to, you know, maybe share resources with them, or just to build that relationship with them, you know, much more proactively than you may hear about some of this information otherwise, because a lot of these students aren't being proactive with coming to advising or meeting with a counselor. And the more that we can kind of come to them and allow them a simple and quick way to kind of say, hey, you know, I'm struggling, I need some help, then the more the more like triage that we can run, and the more support that we can provide to them. So it's been really interesting just seeing the kind of the combination of these two in terms of being able to schedule advising, but then also having ANA set up where, you know, students are interacting directly with, you know, the Siri for college students. So next, I wanted to talk through just what are we seeing in terms of, you know, changes to online advising, and how, you know, how have the events of the last couple months just really, really kind of led to, you know, new things being discovered, new ways in which people are using Upswing, and then thinking forward a little bit more, you know, how will it change just like advising's role on campus?
Hey, Alex.
Hey.
We've got one quick question from Chad. He wanted to know, is ANA able to nudge based on login trends to the online classroom?
Login trends. So I'm guessing you're meaning like, could we send nudges to students who maybe have never used like online advising or online tutoring? Is that kind of where you're getting at there, Chad?
So I'm guessing, so I'm from UMGC, and so all of our classes are online. And so I'm thinking, like, if the student has a decreased login trend, is ANA able to pick up on that?
Oh, right. So one of the things that ANA is able to do, and that we've worked with other schools to do, is build out specific cohorts within ANA where different groups of students may receive different types of nudges or interactions with the system. And so a couple that we've rolled out in the past have been things like, you know, if a student's GPA falls below a certain threshold, you know, falls below, let's say, 2.5 or 2.0, then they may be put into like an at-risk student cohort that receives a specific type of interaction or a specific type of nudge. We've also built out cohorts around, students that may be student athletes, for example, and they may receive a completely different type of, campaign than, normal or non-athlete student would. So we would be able to work with you guys, Chad, to build out or identify, like, who are those students that are maybe below a certain threshold in terms of logging in, and then cater campaigns specifically for that type of student, so that, maybe the nudges that they're getting are pushing them more towards, logging in or remembering to complete their coursework. Whereas, students who don't fall below that threshold could have a different type of messaging entirely.
All right, looks like that answered the question. Thanks, Alex, and thanks for a great question, Chad.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Great. So I wanted to just share with you all some of the new ways or the different types of ways in which we're seeing, students and then also colleges seeking out different support types online. And what's been really interesting is that by having Anna interact with students, we've been able to gain a much better picture of the types of struggles, the types of issues that students are dealing with now that they're transitioning from, traditional courses to online courses. The first and probably the biggest one that we've seen just in the past few months is this idea of emotional wellness. It's been really interesting, the amount of change in terms of Anna's responsiveness to students being academic to it being more support oriented. And just so you all know how Anna works, so the automated piece of Anna is something that, kind of behind the scenes, we have it where it's ongoing in terms of its learnings. But whenever Anna receives messages from students that would be better served by a person, a human to respond to, someone on our support staff receives a notification that a student has reached out to Anna, and it would probably be best for a human or a person to intervene. And then one of our teammates actually goes through and will respond to the student. So it's kind of this, we call it like hybrid AI, where a lot of the stuff where there's a cut and dry solution, Anna can answer directly, but the things that, would be better served by a person, we can actually pull people in to respond to. And since the shift has happened this spring towards online classes, we've seen a really big uptick in terms of those questions that are coming in that that are better served with human intervention. And a big reason for that has been just the emotional wellness piece. It's students, reaching out to Anna just saying, hey, I'm having a really tough time. I feel just overwhelmed right now with coursework, and I just need to talk. Like do you have a shoulder for me to like kind of lean on, and do you have an ear to listen to what I'm going through? And our team works really hard to listen to these students, respond in ways that are both helpful and then also supportive. And then if it comes down to it, then our team also makes recommendations over to, we've made recommendations over to like therapy services at schools or counselors who may be better served to handle specific situations. But this is something that I think, especially as students are learning and adapting to a new lifestyle, this is going to be something that continues to just be really important within those kind of scope of advising. The next thing is financial aid counseling. So this is something that's we've made more and more referrals this past spring for financial aid counseling, just because a lot of students, there's a lot of ambiguity around what's going to happen with financial aid. For the schools of ours who had residence halls. We had a lot of questions around, what's going to happen in terms of housing reimbursement, what's going to happen around, my scholarship for the fall, is it still going to be valid? What's going to happen around, are the FERPA, or not the FERPA, are the FAFSA deadlines going to change at all because of COVID? So we've had a lot of questions come in around financial aid counseling. Most of what we've been able to do here is to connect in the student with either the financial aid team, the finance office at the school, or the business office. And that's worked really well in terms of getting those students connected in with the right place. Oftentimes it's, students just don't have easy access to that information, and through ANA and through our partnership with schools, we've built out a library of the different resources and places to go for students. And so, you'd be surprised, intuitively it seems easy enough to just Google, the college name and then financial aid office or business office. But, just sending the student that direct link through text message seems to really be a huge help a lot of times. If it's a phone number, they can just click right on the phone number from the text message and it'll initiate the call even. The next thing that I think we're just really interested in right now in terms of exploring is this concept of instructor office hours. So it's been really interesting because we've seen a mix, kind of like a mixed bag of what schools are doing with regards to office hours right now. So some of our schools are actually utilizing our advising module on Upswing to allow their instructors to host office hours. Admittedly, it wasn't initially designed for that, so it's kind of like a workaround in some ways right now, but we do have schools where it's working well, where instead of adding advising subjects, the professor will just add their course name and section, and then students are able to find them and schedule office hours there. And then we've also seen schools who are relying upon, instructors using something like, a Zoom meeting like this, or Google Hangouts, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. And it's more so like a link sharing that's done through their LMS. So if they're using, like Canvas or Blackboard, then they're sharing that with students. The pain point there is that there's really no great way of streamlining all of the students' scheduling and availability for instructors always. It's kind of a mixed bag. So this is something that we're actually exploring right now to figure out, could there be a way for Upswing to take our advising system and make it focused instead on instructor office hours? We've actually built out a prototype already that we're going to start testing out here pretty soon with a couple of schools. If you guys are interested, definitely let me know. We'd love to have you involved in that testing. And we're hopeful that by bringing it into the overall scheduling kind of end-to-end solution, that we can make the concept of instructor office hours even easier for both students and their instructors. And then finally, one of the things that we've seen, I don't know if you guys are seeing this at your schools as well, but the concept of transfer advising has become, I think, just way more important in the last couple months, especially as students are thinking about, kind of being closer to family, or, dealing with some of the personal issues that they may be having related to COVID. We've seen a lot of questions and a lot of students coming into ANA asking about the transfer process and what that looks like. So it's going to be really helpful from both ways in terms of having, having advisors that can talk to current students about what it would look like to transfer to other colleges, universities, but then also on the flip side, having advisors who are able to talk with prospective students who may want to transfer into the college. Typically, whenever a question or a concern comes up around transfer advising, first thing we'll do is we'll refer the student over to an advisor at the school who has way more information about, the student's ability to transfer and their course plan than someone on our team typically would. So we've seen that really grow in terms of just, student interest and student need for more information around what that transfer process looks like. I know this slide was in particular a lot. Are there any questions here before I move on?
Hi, yes, Alex. I wanted to ask with the financial counseling, so do you encourage having the actual financial aid staff to be available in the system, or just the referral piece?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have some schools that use advising, have financial aid advisors on the system. And in those scenarios, it would be where, a student, as they're looking at the list of advisors, would be able to, schedule some time with a financial aid counselor. And where that's worked well is if, if there's a need to, maybe do some sort of like live interaction with the student, maybe screen share different things around the student's account or their current standing. I would say a lot of financial aid departments aren't quite at that level yet. So what is more common is that we'll work with the school to make sure that we get in like the phone number to the financial aid office and the email to the financial aid office, phone number to business office, email to business office. Because, at some of our schools, it's like one person or maybe like two people. So it really depends on like the type of financial aid support that you're able to offer, but it could definitely be something where if you had the team and if they had the access to, a computer and those resources, they could connect in with students directly on Upswing as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great. So the next thing I wanted to just kind of talk through was, again, I hit on a lot of this, so I won't spend too much time on this slide, but just how, since migrating to a remote college experience, this, the proactive and personalized communication is just becoming more and more critical across schools. When we look at the usage rates of ANA, before March and after March, it's a world of difference. You're looking at a graph and it's like 2 or 3 times the volume that we've seen. What's been really good and what we've seen, I think, work well towards addressing like students' fears or concerns is the more proactive that schools are with sharing information to students, the better received it ends up being. Even if it's something like, hey, we just want to let you know that we're still figuring out what courses are going to look like or what class instruction is going to look like this fall. We'll let you know as soon as we have the answer. Students have responded very well to that, just kind of like open and transparent level of communication. And then once schools do figure out like, okay, we're going to move towards this method of instruction, sending that out to students as soon as possible has been just, I think, really important. So we saw kind of a mixed bag this spring where some of our colleges were like very proactive with using ANA to communicate to students around, what was going to happen after spring break and what was going to happen with their courses. For colleges that had an, like a dormitory presence for our 4-year colleges, letting them know what was going to happen with residence halls, how students can move out, when they can move out. We got a ton of interaction around that, and students were very appreciative, that schools were reaching out to them directly, and it felt much more personalized for them. So I definitely say, especially as you all are, I'm guessing going to deal with just many kind of levels or iterations of changes, make sure that you're keeping this idea of, this proactive communication in mind, because it does go a really long way with, I think, quelling some of the concerns that students may have. And then finally, what I wanted to talk through was just a couple of ways in which we're looking to make our advising platform even better. So, wanted to definitely shout out Luke and his team at ACPHS here, because I actually got to visit them last year and meet with several of their faculty advisors and just hear firsthand what did they like about Upswing, what did they not like about it, what would make their lives easier if we built that into our system. And so there's two really key points of enhancement or development that we're working through right now. The first of those is better integration with calendar systems. So one of the things that we've heard, I think pretty much across the board from faculty, is that the last thing they want is to have to manage, yet another calendar. Everything they have, in terms of planning for their courses and for, meetings they might have on campus or virtually now, is done through either Outlook or Google Calendar. And for Upswing to be a tool that actually reduces the amount of time that they're spending just coordinating different things, we need to integrate better into calendars. So right now we do have a calendar integration, but we're looking at making it even more robust so that it's two ways, where someone logging into Upswing and setting their availability, that's going to pull in their availability automatically from their email calendar. Or when a session is canceled on Upswing, it's going to automatically cancel it from their email calendar, just so that regardless of which calendar that each advisor goes to, is going to automatically be updated with all the information from their other calendar. So it goes from Upswing to email calendar, and then also from email calendar to Upswing. And then that way, if let's say that you get a meeting request from a colleague that you have to hop into, instead of having to then go and also update your Upswing schedule with a vacation time or like an unavailable time, our system could automatically update that to show you as busy so that students can't schedule for that time frame. So we're really excited about building this out. We've done a lot of the initial work already to start thinking about how the calendar integration would change this the session scheduling and availability setting process. So this is something we're going to continue building out this fall. And then the second thing that we're really excited about, and that we heard a lot from advisors on, was adding in this ability to send group messages out through the new messaging platform. And there's kind of two use cases here that we've uncovered. One is what you would think of as like a regular group message, right? You send a message out to 3 or 4 other people, everyone's in a group, they can all respond to each other, very interactive, very conversational. But one of the things that we uncovered specifically from advisors was this concept of a BCC, or like a blind carbon copy group message, where as an advisor, you may want to send out the same message to all of your advisees. Like, let's say it's, hey, don't forget to register for courses on, by July 15th. You can send that out to all of your advisees as a BCC in one step, where when they respond, they're only responding back to you. So if you have, let's say, 50 different students, you're not having to initiate 50 new conversations. You're setting it up once, you're sending it out the same way you would as an email, but it's going out directly through the Upswing platform. Students, when they log in, they're responding directly through the Upswing platform. So we're getting higher levels of engagement, higher levels of response. And for advisors, it allows them to keep all of the, sensitive information confidential between them and the student. So these are both things that we're working on building out right now. We're looking at, being able to start testing these with a couple of partners this fall. Again, we do have a calendar integration already, but we're looking to make that much better. And then with the messaging system, this is going to be something that we build in with our new messaging upgrade. So that's pretty much it from my side, but would love to take any questions. I think we have just a couple minutes left before the next session starts. So if y'all have any questions, would love to hear them. All right. Well, if there aren't any, then let me just
I do have one question. I just
sure.
typing and then decided I would ask instead. Do you see with Anna and the virtual assistant that schools are using that for just their current student population, or are they also integrating that with their new student population? You know, because you have your current students that are used to all of your system softwares and you know, used to getting registration notices and nudges and things and answers from advisors, but incoming students, while they sort of started an advising relationship at our college, it's not a real strong one until registration actually takes place. So wondering if schools are using Anna to communicate to both audiences.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sheila. So we're seeing both of those scenarios happen where, like you said, you know, students who are currently enrolled and have that advising relationship already built out, that's a certain type of interaction or a certain type of communication that they're going to be getting through Anna. What schools will also do is set up, kind of similar to what Chad was asking earlier around the, you know, cohort for students that don't log in quite as much. They'll set up cohorts for either prospective students or for, you know, first-time students or first-year students, because it's going to be a different type of interaction than students who are already used to the college lifestyle. So this is going to be, a lot of those Anna messages are going to be focused more around, you know, hey, here are the things that you need to make sure to do before getting to campus. There may be more touch-ins to just check up on students to make sure that, you know, things are going well within their first couple of weeks of school. So it definitely is a different type of communication, and that can be split up in the Anna system through Upswing.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Along those lines, it also reminded me we've had some schools start to use Anna as well for like stop out re-engagement. So for students that maybe dropped out without a degree, we have some schools using it on kind of that further end of the spectrum too, to say, okay, are there ways for us to maybe re-engage students who, you know, work towards a degree but don't quite have it yet? So it, you know, it's very flexible in terms of the types of students and the types of messaging that you can send out. Great. Well, I know I'm running right up on time, so I'm going to go ahead and end it, but I appreciate the questions. Let me just drop my email again into the chat just so you all have it. And feel free to reach out with any other questions. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alex.
Bye.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes so that we can allow some more people to join us. So you can just hang tight. So I have a lot to share. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. My name is Marissa. If I haven't met you or had the pleasure to work with you yet, I'm the Customer Experience Manager here at Upswing. My job is really focused on engagement and being able to work with either admins or also to communicate with students to ensure that we are getting students to engage with our services and our products. So I'm either doing that through building out specific strategies or building out content that's going to help to further along the engagement with mainly students, but also helping admins to kind of create that engagement as well from their end. So what we are going to talk about today is what we would call basically our engagement targeting. But basically, it's we're working together to help to increase student engagement on your campus. I'm also going to dive into some of our metrics and some of the data that we found over the course of this last year, so that you guys can kind of get a good understanding of how that looked from all of our schools. We're going to talk about some trends and some of the things that we learned from some of the student engagement efforts that we did this last year, and then also some takeaways for the fall based on my recommendations working with a handful of schools this past year. So first off, this last year we did a survey where we asked everyone to provide their feedback on what their thoughts were of student engagement. And I think that this specific blurb about this really kind of exudes a little bit of what everyone kind of contributed to that response. And so this is how we really interpret what student engagement from a holistic perspective looks at, and really try to understand how we fit into that piece of that puzzle. So not only are students, really engaged in the learning process, but they're also getting engaged with events in the classroom and then with resources. And that's really where we see ourselves fit into this, that we are providing those resources that students can continue their learning past the classroom, past any events or activities, and really just contributing to their overall wellness and learning process. So we are really focused on improving student engagement within our realm, and that's why my job has really been completely focused on being able to help support this specific effort, because we see how important it is that it fits into the bigger picture of students being successful and continuing to engage and learn. And so that's why we have really taken a lot of steps to continue to engage with students, and very specifically how we think about engagement within Upswing is really to be increasing usage with our services. So when we see that students are logging in more, when they're using, the tutoring services, or writing services, when they're engaging with Anna, that is how we are seeing that we are helping to improve the results, not really for us, but really for the students. We'll talk about a little bit later what that means and how we are able to measure that. But that's really kind of how we're thinking about student engagement and why we see that it's so important as we're partnering together in all of this work. So something that we've been doing and really focused on this past year was being able to work with some of our schools to really improve upon what it is that is already happening, but being really laser focused on being able to essentially get more engagement with students through different strategies. So if ever you were wanting to improve upon that, what our process is that really you let us know that you're interested in improving your student engagement. And then what we do is I set up a time to basically just kind of understand what is happening at your school. What is it that you guys are currently doing? Let's say, for example, you have our tutoring services. How are you currently using our tutoring services? How are you promoting the tutoring services? Who is aware about the tutoring services on your campus? We'll just kind of go through a lot of different questions and scenarios so that I have like a really good understanding of what's happening. And then what I do with that information is I am then taking that, and then based off of my experience, working in higher education, working within marketing, and then working with all of other partners, I'm basically able to help you identify some new ways that we can start tackling improving more engaged students, and basically being able to help promote the services that you have. And so we basically work together to identify what are the most important priorities that we want to focus on first. And then I help you to actually flesh those things out. As part of that work, I do provide what is called an engagement kit, and I'll talk about this in a little bit. But basically, I'm providing resources to help you do this work. And then we look at, making any changes to any of the resources that I'm providing. And then we basically start putting those strategies in place. And we put a plan together so that you know exactly what steps you need to take in order to move forward with that particular strategy. And then we continue to communicate and work together to make sure that we're making strides and kind of learn from that entire process. Another piece of this that's extremely important is setting goals. So not only do we want to come up with some strategies, but with those strategies, we want to align that with goal setting so that we're actually putting together some strategies that have measurable outcomes. So we build this into the SMART goal framework, which is to build out a goal that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And that really helps us to be very laser focused on what it is that we're doing, how we're going to achieve it, and how we're going to measure that specific goal. This also helps us to be accountable from our end, that we are working on something very specific. And it's not just this goal that, you know, it's very colorful, but it doesn't really lay out what specifically we need to do in order to accomplish that. And so what we do is we figure out, again, what's going to be most important to you, what's going to help you move the needle the most. And then that's where we prioritize to essentially build out the SMART goal that we then work with you to accomplish. Now, I had mentioned that what we do is we provide what we call an engagement kit. For us, the engagement kit really is a toolbox of resources that you are able to use to help you promote, to help you educate your students, and to really just let students gain a good understanding of the services that they have that your school has provided them. I'd say some of the things that I've really learned from doing this work over the past of this last year is really just bringing about more awareness to students. I think what we know, once students start using our services, because we make it very student friendly, is that a lot of the times they just didn't know about it. They didn't know how to find out about these services. They didn't know how to use them, maybe once they did find out about them. And so what we're doing is we're gathering that information that we're learning from all these conversations that we have from our schools, and we're figuring out what are the resources that we can provide you so that you guys can continue to promote this to your students in ways that students want to receive that information. And so we're thinking about this from a multi-channel approach, and then providing you the resources so that we take that list from you and we customize this work so that it has your school colors, that it has your school logos. Essentially, a student wouldn't necessarily feel that it, you know, is coming from an outside company, and we're building out these resources so that you could just take it, run with it, and then start using it. A lot of the things that that we're doing and we're building, I really like to bring in the perspective, especially coming from higher ed, that we want to make this part as easy as possible. And so the more that we can do to help facilitate that type of environment and to take the lift, then we're doing that on our end, and then just basically giving you those resources so that you can be more focused on putting those things in place versus having to create any of those resources. So one thing that we have developed within this last year, this has really been really huge in how we think about student engagement. And something that I think about when I, you used to work in higher ed with student engagement is I didn't have a framework to help me understand what it was that I was doing was actually measurable, where this is. This gives you a way to think about, one, how you can target specific students, two, how you can measure that work, and three, an overall picture of how those things all intertwine with each other. So very specifically, we work with a school, and that kind of is the first top of the funnel and just really like all the enrolled students that could potentially have access to these services. And then the second part of that is those students who are logging into Upswing. That's really where a lot of the focus was for us this past year, was ensuring that the schools that we were working with, that we were able to help them be able to create more awareness, that we could get students to know, about Upswing so that they would be prompted to then go log in. Those two things were very much intertwined with each other. And so that then kind of allows students to trickle into the latter part of the funnel, which then students would go to request help. And essentially what that means is maybe they would sign up for a tutoring session, or maybe they would submit one of their essays for review. Now, what we have found, and the reasons why there's different layers of this funnel, is that students stop at every part of this funnel. So for whatever reason, a student might have logged in, they might have actually requested a tutoring session, but they didn't follow through with it. They abandoned that session, or they canceled it and they didn't return. So that's why we're here to kind of help you think through these different areas of the funnel, so that ultimately we get them to the last part of the funnel where they've received help. And then we're also seeing that students continue to basically use these services and continue to keep learning from these services because they're receiving that help, either by getting the feedback from their essays, or that they are having tutoring sessions. So one thing that we do know from this work and research that we have done is, for each session completed, GPA increases on average by 0.05%. So our main goal is to help students get to the last part of this funnel, but we also know that that's what's most important to you, is to retain students. And so that's how we're thinking about this. When we can get students to learn more from attending a session or submitting an essay for review, that's where they're gaining that knowledge, and that's helping to impact their GPA. Another thing that we do know from our research is if a student completes 3 sessions, the likelihood of passing increases by 10%. So again, this is what our shared goal is to help students be retained, to help them gain knowledge, and to help them continue to keep seeking out these resources so that they'll continue to keep growing from that. So how we measure student engagement. I wanted to kind of show you how we put this into practice. So I just went over the framework. Now what we do is we tie that to the goals. So when I mentioned previously, we partner together to identify what goals are most important to you and how we work together. We then pair that with this information. So these are some specific examples of some of the goals that I've worked with some of our schools, so that you can see how schools are thinking about their goals. Obviously, this is a summarized statement of that, but basically, one school, they wanted to make Upswing more present on campus. Now, how do we measure that? We know that if we promote these services more widely on campus through multiple channels, through multiple forms of communication, what that does is more students will have more awareness of those services, and then that will prompt them to start logging in. So by an increase of logins, we can see that all of the work that we're doing for promotion can impact the logins. If a school wants to increase their student usage, so if we're thinking of the student engagement funnel, this means that they've logged in, they've sought out help, now they've actually used the service. We can use that as a metric to basically see how that's impacted. And there's specific strategies that we can use in order to directly impact those specific numbers. If a school wants to build out relationships across campus, what that might mean is maybe there's another department who it might make sense to kind of bring them into the fold, and they can help to promote this. So let's say, for example, advising. A student goes to an advisor to let them know, hey, I'm struggling with my classes. They refer them to Upswing services so that they can receive help. We know that if we see an increase in logins because we have built stronger relationships across those targeted departments. Those things basically, they align, especially because of the time frame that we're working on those specific strategies. But then we can use the login to be a metric to show that, okay, that specific effort that we did was impacted by those specific strategies that we were working on together. And most importantly, to increase retention. So as part of the funnel, the section that was right before, basically our last part of the funnel, to increase repeat users, we find that that is probably one of the most important goals that we're working on with schools. And the way that we're doing that, again, is by getting students to return on using the services, because those things are both directly impacted.
Hey, Marissa, we've got a question.
Sure.
So Jared wants to know, he says he often finds that they don't have as much trouble getting students to log in or to book a tutoring or an advising session. Their issue tends to be with students following through with the requested help. So he wants to know, do you have any suggestions to increase student follow through on requested appointments? Yes.
So what I have found when we're working at, you're kind of talking about different layers of the funnel, what I think that is most associated with is making sure that students are educated on how to use the services. We've done a lot of research on our end to kind of understand like what is preventing students from being able to move forward. And I think that the more focus on explaining to students, here are the next steps after you've logged in. And I'm going to use tutoring services as an example. So let's say that they've logged in, they go into the platform and they're like, now what? What do I do? That is where we can help to provide resources. In that specific scenario, we have videos that show students, here's how you sign up for an immediate or a scheduled session. Here's how you use a virtual learning classroom. So it's more of finding ways to help them take the next steps that then can kind of target that specific set of students, and also target maybe why they're not moving forward in being able to schedule getting help, essentially. Any other questions?
Marissa, I don't have a question, but I want to piggyback off what you were just speaking on with Eric's question. We found at my school that if we allow students to schedule too far out, that can be one of the reasons that they do not actually follow through with that appointment. So we have it where you can schedule for this week and this week only. And then also at one point we were trying to keep track of students who would abandon sessions or, never show up and things like that. And then, like you said, talk to that student and let them know what the process is and things like that. But we did find that cutting it to just 1 week really, really helped out.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Honestly, a lot of this work is trial and error. We like to pilot doing a lot of different things and a lot of different strategies, and then use our data to be able to see, okay, this is where we saw that this worked, this helped improve XYZ, and then we're able to share that with our community so that they can start doing those things. So kind of two things to that. Jasmine, thanks for sharing that. And if ever you guys notice something that really seems to work, please share that with us so that we can continue to share that amongst our community. And then also, if there are any specific questions or you're wondering, why is this happening? Also share that with us so that we can help to work with you and being able to help you solve that. We don't always have the answers to everything. We're learning as part of this process, but we're very focused on being able to understand so that we can share that knowledge with everyone. And so definitely see us as a partner in being able to have a better understanding so that we can all help to improve students' levels of engagement for these resources.
Hey, Marissa, this is Arletha. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah, I was just sharing in the chat. We do we give bonus points to students at Bethune-Cookman University, and now the students and faculty are competing to see which one gets the most. We make it like a fun game, and students love bonus points, especially in math and science classes. So
That's awesome. I love that idea. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry. I'm going my. I've been having issues with my mouse today. It's not doing what I wanted it to do. Let me go back. But yes, that is a great idea. If ever we see where one, there's any type of like gaming a part of something, and two, if something is ever required, we do definitely see very high levels of engagement. Might be because students have to use it at some point, but then also just making it fun, I think also really gets students more involved. And the thing is that when students get to a specific service, they typically enjoy it. And that's kind of how we're building out our products. We want it to be very student-centric, so that they feel like they are, using products that they can easily use. It's not intimidating. We have it built out in a way that it's kind of like social media focused, and how they might use other platforms, that sort of thing. So yes, we do see that that's a great strategy to use. Does anybody else have any other ways and things that they have found are successful?
I'll say something again. Like Dr. McSween was saying, with the points at Bishop State for our remedial students, math and English, they are required to meet with us at least 10 visits every semester. So that helps us. Now this was pre-COVID. Now that COVID has hit, we kind of have been a little lax on that because it was a test grade, and want to give you extra grades with everything that's going on. But anyway, yes, we did have some type of point system. And then also I decided at the end of last semester or 2 semesters ago that I would find the student who had logged in the most. And as a department, we, offered something to that student. But that was just one person, that was kind of just my idea. But going forward, the points sound like a great idea too, because I need a way to engage our students who are in upper level math, because as I stated, only the remedial students are required. So for my upper level, that would be great.
That's smart. A question for you too, how are you promoting those types of things to the students?
We use Google Text a lot, and then, standard push emails, from the department and things like that. At some point there were signs around campus and, in our lab and whatnot, but, we're not really on campus at this moment. So now it's just been a email and text type thing, trying to get communication to them that way.
Okay, great. That's a great idea. Awesome. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to share?
Got one more that came in from Kyra, actually. I'll just read this one out. It's from the chat. She says they do a course assignment where students who take online classes have to complete an Upswing module, and all they have to do is check in and give feedback. So this is what introduces students to Upswing, who we never see on campus, and now with COVID, because all of our classes are online.
That's a great suggestion. We definitely have seen that with a couple of our schools who use that tactic. Another thing that I've heard that's similar to that, just to kind of provide some more info, is incorporating that into like freshman orientations or any type of informational session, depending on the purpose of the informational session. I know that we have some schools who are incorporating that. And again, when things are normal and students were on campus, they would also have students log in at that time so that they actually did that in the course of that workshop. So they actually got to see it when they had some actual support there.
Yep, and we had one more, Marissa from Jarrett, who said they use their Office Canvas site to promote services, and it cuts down on a lot of emails. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, neat. It's a great suggestion. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing everything. I hope that that was helpful for you. I know it's helpful for me to always keep learning. So definitely please keep sharing that as we keep talking through this, if you think of anything else. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and start diving into our data. Hold on. Oh my God. Please excuse my mouth. It is so sensitive. Hold on, let me try something different. Okay, I'm gonna use my arrows. Okay, so when we're thinking about our data, there's kind of two perspectives that I'm looking at when I am really trying to synthesize like what's happening with our data. So part of it is the actual engagement funnel data that we've already talked about, and how I'm thinking about this when it comes to logins. For me, that means really building awareness. And so if we're doing any specific strategies based on that. Oh, go ahead, do we have someone? Oh, okay. So when we're thinking about building awareness, that is what impacts our logins. For our usage, that basically is driving action. And then for our heavy use, that's creating value. We're getting those students to continue to be repeat students. Now, this data reflects data from all of our schools. So basically, regardless of what services or products that you might have, it's still contributing to this engagement funnel data. So that's kind of one thing I just wanted to know. Obviously that you can see kind of the differences between the logins usage and heavy use. I would say where we were most focused this last year, probably centered around logins most. I do see from this data that where I'm hoping that we can really put some more focus into this upcoming academic year would be around usage. Because ideally we would want to see higher increases there, but knowing that we were very laser focused on our logins, to me, I'm also happy to see that we were able to increase in that specific area of the engagement funnel. And then what was a super positive thing was also to see that we were able to impact our heavy use by 8% increase. So I think it's positive overall that we were able to increase in all of these different areas of the engagement funnel, and that everyone's data, so because everyone is contributing to this information, that also shows that, you know, everyone is incrementally contributing to the bigger picture, which is this information, where everyone's positively impacting those numbers. So I think that that's kind of the most important part to note about this. So the second way that I am looking at data is through product usage. For us, this is kind of really telling on where we have some, you know, areas for growth, as well as how students are using our services. So first and foremost, synchronous tutoring, we saw a 48% increase. With our asynchronous tutoring, a 5% increase, and then with Anna, we saw a 76% increase. Now, obviously, I'm not including every single one of our services, but these are typically your services that are most popular with the majority of our schools. So I wanted to kind of highlight that specifically. I think that this basically helps us understand, you know, where students are most inclined to use these services. And then I think also with this, because we're comparing this to our data from last year, so the year over year, so that's kind of where you're seeing this information from last year around the spring semester to this year, you can see, you know, these major times of growth, more specifically in April, is when that really started to impact those numbers. But it helps us to just kind of understand what students are doing and how they're using these services and what's resonating with them. Does anybody have any questions about this data? Okay. And then I kind of wanted to focus on some of the trends past that data. Now, obviously, it's centered around what the data is telling us, but then what our assumptions are from gathering that information. So again, I'm highlighting what our two most popular services are just based off of what I just showed. But really what I'm gathering from this information, and again, this is also just showing this particular semester versus what I was originally showing was the year over year. But is it, you know, during this time where we're seeing such huge growth, is that one, when I started to look at our individual schools, where we did notice the highest levels of, we'll even just say logins and usage, was the schools that had their staff on the tutoring services. And for me, when I see that, to me, that makes me think that the staff, because the staff are using this more, that they are really finding this service to be valuable and useful. You know, considering that I've worked in higher ed myself, you know, I know that when there is a tool that isn't helpful, we typically try to find a workaround. And so if you are seeing that staff is engaging with those resources, then that's definitely like a positive thing, that they're finding it useful, they're finding it easy to use, and then that's going to help impact your ability to have more students want to use that specific resource, in this case tutoring, because your staff are on board for it. Same thing goes for students. When students are migrating to using a specific resource, that means that they're engaging with that resource. If they found it to be clunky, or if they felt like they didn't know how to use it, they're not going to use it. Students are very telling in, you know, how they're using services. And so I think that it's really important to note that, you know, during this time when students were students were forced online, they did turn to the tutoring services to be able to get that help, and that it did work for them when they weren't able to access on-campus resources. I think the other thing that's important to note here is that this allows them to have services available 24/7, because with Upswing tutors, they are available 24/7. We have tutors that are from all over the world, and so that allows us to offer services during off time. When it comes to Anna, this tremendous growth shows us that students really resonate with getting information on their phones. We know that, but now we have data to support that. The other thing is that text messaging, because they're open to the information, that means that they're open to receiving recommendations about resources. This could be advising, this could be tutoring, you know, whatever the resources that there needs to be any more promotion for, that can be in the form of a text message, and they're going to be open to receiving that. And then finally, students are willing to open up about their mental health. I think that was one of the biggest trends that we saw this last semester, was how open they were to talk about topics that you wouldn't think that they would be so willing to maybe expose themselves on, but they really were. And so I think that just goes to show that, you know, when we see this type of data, we have to be very in tune with it and allow it to help guide how we're supporting them, how we're communicating to them, and what decisions that we're making because of that. So I hope that that's helpful. And, you know, if ever you guys have any questions about this, please let me know. But this is kind of how I'm interpreting this information and using it to kind of help provide insight for you all. So now getting into some engagement strategy recommendations. Really where this is coming from for me are all of the learnings that I'm gathering working with the schools, and things that we're testing and trying. So first and foremost, be prepared to promote resources through multiple channels all online. The schools that we have seen them do this, and so that's through their learning management system, through their website, through communications with students, through social media. Those are the schools that we are seeing be most successful, and their numbers are going through the roof in how students are finding out about Upswing, they're logging in, they're using their resources. I mean, the whole engagement funnel, students are showing through the numbers that they're engaged, and the schools that are doing that best are the ones that are promoting their resources through multiple ways. Including faculty as part of your online engagement strategy. With us having to turn to an online environment from this last semester, potentially having that be part of a hybrid strategy for this upcoming semester, your faculty are your first line of support when it comes to an online environment. And so really making sure that they are fully in tune with your engagement strategy, they're fully in tune with the resources that students have available to them, because they're going to be the person that the students are interacting with most in that type of environment. So making sure to keep that top of mind and including them as part of this, I think is really going to be what's going to help you guys to be most successful in doing this. And again, we're seeing where that's happening with our schools to kind of back up to support this information. So also promoting mental health services. I think with everything that we were learning about with Anna, you know, we really found out how much students are not only, you know, aware of what's going on and how that's impacting their mental health, but then just feeling kind of stuck and lost on what to do with that. So they know that they need to seek out help, but then how do they get more help for it? And so I think really promoting mental health resources is really key, especially during this time right now. And I think that will really help students to be able to work past more obstacles because they have a clear mind. And I think that they're going to be very open to it based off of what we saw with our interactions with students. Finally, finding a way to encourage students. This was also another huge learning in our interactions with students through Anna, how much they responded to encouraging messages, even if it was something as simple as, I'm so proud of you, I know that you could do this. The responses that we get from those types of messages was so encouraging and really motivating for our team to see, but I think also just really goes to show how much students need that. They need to hear that. They might not be hearing it from anybody else. And then I just wanted to share kind of some learnings through the communications that we do have with students. Obviously, I've been talking a lot about text messaging. So I thought it was kind of important that if you guys are using these forms of communication, here are some things that we've learned in doing that. So again, students really engage with messages around emotional wellness. So I think, you know, it's something that we've kind of just been learning is that don't feel encouraged to be able to talk about those things. Students are open to it. Again, I had already mentioned that students yearn for encouragement. So in any form of communication that you're sending, I think that this can be a key strategy in doing that. They're going to feel more supported if they're feeling encouraged. So I think that those two things kind of are hand in hand. Text message really gets students to open up. So if you're using any form of text message, or if you're not using text message, this is a key form of communication with students. Text allows students to feel supported in a one-on-one basis. We literally had students tell us that, where, you know, when you're attending a school and you feel like you're one of number of thousands of students, this helps them feel like they're not alone. And just that type of environment really supports that, that feeling for them. And texting can help your school retain your students. So we've had several scenarios where we have seen students just felt lost, but we were able to bring them to some much needed resources, and they were able to pass their classes. They were able to get past another semester, and they were able to continue to move forward. And we saw that because they would reach back out to us and kind of close that loop of communication, that we saw the full picture. And so something as simple as text messaging can really help them, work through that. Engaging students via email. So we do send emails to some of our schools to help promote some of the services. And I would say based off of our open rates, so we basically averaged around 31% of open rates for the emails that we sent, which is higher than a typical open rate, which is usually around mid-20s. So to me, that tells me that students are still open to emails. I think that it's just a matter of being very thoughtful in how you're using that communication. Something else we learned was afternoon send performed higher. So I think that's something important to note. Making content student-centric. So that's one thing that I really like to do with our tone, is just to make it kind of fun, lighthearted, and students respond well with that. So I think that's important to note. And then using metrics to understand what works. This is absolutely key to know what content is engaging, to know what messages are important, what students are clicking on, and then use that to kind of help build out your communication strategy. So finally, recommendations for the fall. Make sure that students can find out about your school's resources online. I can't reiterate that more than enough, because it's so important. We don't know what's going to happen this next semester. So I really just want to encourage everybody to make sure that students aren't already aware of your resources online, or if you haven't updated your website to reflect a specific resource, just really see if you can make some time to do that. Work with your hero to understand your school's data. It's very important to understand how things are performing for your school. So if you haven't had that conversation with your hero, make sure to make that time, because this can help guide, how we work with you this upcoming year. And you got to have that baseline. Let's identify where there are opportunities to grow your online presence. So if we haven't been able to work with each other, please again reach out to your hero so that we can set up some time and we can really dissect, what's working well, what can we do better, and how we at Upswing can help support that work. If you're not using Anna, find out how your school is communicating with students in a two-way form. Really talked about that, how important this was to students, and how much growth and communication, two-way communication with students we got this last semester, and just overall with using text messaging. So I really encourage you that this is really a way to communicate with students, and we're seeing that time and time again. So just really keep that in mind. And we can help you promote Upswing to your students. If you don't have the ability to do that and to send students reminders of how to use things and how to be educated on how to use these resources, we can do that. The only thing that we need are your emails. And then, I'm very thoughtful in the communications that we send out to students. And so again, we can help you to do that work if you're not able to. So again, reach out to your hero, ask them how you can get started in doing this work with them as well as myself. If you're not using Anna, we do have a two-way communication tool rubric that we can show you so that can help you think about a two-way communication tool and how you're building out your communication strategy. And then also, if we are using Anna and working with you, let's make sure to reevaluate our messaging priorities so that we're continuing to learn from what we're doing with each other. So thank you. I apologize I went over a little bit. Does anybody have questions?
Oh, thanks, Dr. Upswing. She says we love Upswing, and Sheila says this has been great. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
All right, I've just placed the link to the very last little short snippet of the end user conference. If you click on that link, it'll take you back to the main room for Zoom. So in a moment, I'll end this room. So if you need a minute, go ahead and click on the link I just added, and that'll wrap us up at 1 o'clock. Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you everyone for attending.